All right, boys and girls, pay attention. Today we're going to work on getting set up with our adventures in MongoDB land. Now, MongoDB is a database that works with a encoding technology called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. You, I hope, are quite familiar by now with relational databases and SQL, the great invention of the fabulous Thomas Cod. And I'm not going to go over too much about SQL except to relate it to JSON. Essentially, what Cod did in the early 1970s, the world was drowning in data at that point. It was a pretty messed up situation. So his thing was minimize, right? Don't have duplicate records, because back then they were working with COBOL, and COBOL I guess it's around, it still uses a data encoding technology called data frames. And they had these big reel-to-reel tape recorders you've probably seen in old TV shows or old science fiction movies, right? They're basically like big bookshelves or big filing cabinets. And if the program wants to seek data, you'd watch the tapes going to find the right data frame. And then the programmer would have to phone pick up the phone and call the data storage room and ask the technician to load another reel, right? Like load reel 7B or whatever it is. And so anyway, that was pretty messed up. So COD, now this was just when magnetic hard drives were starting to become a thing. So he said, let's normalize, let's make an arrangement based on relational algebra and relational calculus by which we will organize, right? We'll study our business domain. We will make each concept to be a table. Consider the example of the college enrollment system. So you have students, classes, and enrollments. And then COD said, well, the way you want to do this now is keep all of your students together and give them a primary key such as student ID. And put all of your classes together and give them a class ID. And then if I want to relate a student to a class, I have to make a third relator table called enrollment. And enrollment is my table which knows about the student ID and the class ID, and it has to have a primary key as well, so that becomes the enrollment ID. So anyway, that's the basic thing that's going on in terms of SQL, right? So those are predicate joins. Now that's pretty important background information to be aware of, because when we get into our JSON starting on Thursday, one of the things we're going to study here, we're going to initially study the concept of what JSON is, because we're going to be encoding JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, key value pairs, into our Node NPM JavaScript programs, and we're going to be using it as a backend data store. Now you can go ahead if you want. I put some little videos there. They just sort of give a high-level conceptual overview. And if you want, you can take a look at my PowerPoint. I'm not going to be spending time on this in class, but some people like to know the history on the basis that if your goal is to work your way up to senior management, basically what's the difference between a senior manager and maybe a line manager or somebody who executes the work in terms of the famous do, manage, lead pyramid. Well, people who work their way further up that pyramid have more and more of a sensibility of the industry, where it's going. They can do visioning. They can make predictions about where the company should invest its resources in the future. That's called thought leadership. And to do that, you have to have a conceptualization, right? You have to know where the industry has been and where it's going and so on. So my PowerPoint should be here somewhere. Oh, there it is. So anyway, I'll leave it to you to go and read through this by yourself. JavaScript Object Notation was invented by Douglas Crockford, and basically JSON is much more flexible. JSON does not have a primary key, which SQL is based on a primary key, and that lets you do much more fine-tuned work in terms of modeling your business domain. Now, the price to be paid for that, there's a couple of prices. Number one, it's much harder work to design a good data model in JSON than it is in SQL. And of course, the other thing now is we have to give up, we have to let go of something we've always wanted, which is for our database to be the single source of truth. With a SQL database, you get something called referential integrity. Referential integrity means the database is guaranteed to be telling you the truth about what's going on. Whereas with JSON, you get something called eventual consistency. And eventual is pretty fast. It might be a couple of seconds, but at any split second in time without the primary key, the database might be out of sync. Now, that's good and bad. The bad news is, well, it's not telling us the exact right information because SQL is atomic, right? When you make a transaction, it passes the acid test. So it's atomic, consistent, indivisible, and so on. It can be rolled back if the update to the database doesn't work. But the bad thing about that is when I want to commit to a SQL database, I have to lock the entire database. So imagine Facebook, for example, or eBay or any of these shopping sites, Amazon. If you could not purchase your product because somebody somewhere else in the world is in the middle of purchasing a product, you might have to wait a couple hours before your transaction can go through. So the nice thing about JSON and MONGO DB, which is the JSON database we'll be using, is that it's network aware and it can very easily be distributed across multiple nodes. Yeah, you can distribute SQL databases. I've done it. It's very difficult. And once again, you get the latency because you can only do one update at a time. And if there's just 10 people in the office, that's not a big deal. But if there's millions of users on Facebook, it starts to become a very big deal. So anyway, these are all things we'll be learning about in terms of our JSON adventures. So in SQL, database, the structure is imposed by the business domain. In JSON, the schema emerges. It's an emergent property of the system. All right, so go and read through this stuff. Now, we say that SQL is the right way to go if you have a low variety data model. So product in a warehouse, for example, well, it's described by SKU numbers and shelf numbers. It's pretty primitive. It's pretty low dimension. Whereas if I wanted to, for example, have a very high variety data model, let's say I am Google and I want to correlate my users' demographics with the kinds of products they're likely to buy or ads they're likely to respond to. I could not do that with SQL because, well, where's the primary key? Similarly, with ChatGPT and AI models, it has conversational memory based on JSON, right? How would you construct a primary key for a conversational memory with ChatGPT? So the concept now is Codd's law's primary key says to normalize, to make everything look the same. The downside of that is you're washing away information in your system. You're choosing to throw away information to make your life simpler. Problem is, in the new platform economy, right, in the new web services economy, the information you're throwing away is also your monetization hooks. They're things that could be giving you a higher bandwidth insight into your business domain. You could connect APIs to, as we'll do in this course, and look for opportunities to generate revenue from them. So anyway, go and read through this PowerPoint. I built it up over several years. It's pretty comprehensive. But what we're going to do right now is set ourselves up with MongoDB, right? Set ourselves up with MongoDB, which is our Mongo database. And MongoDB is great because it's in the cloud, it's cloud aware, and therefore if I wanted to hook myself up with my mobile apps or websites so users could share playing a game, like share playing a card game or whatever, they'd all go to the same data source and they'd all get refreshed from the same source. So we're going to take a look at this right now. We're going to set up a MongoDB account. Now, I'll leave some time for it in Thursday's class. However, if you can get to it by yourself before class, that would be great. That leaves more time for coding in class. So let's proceed to go and do that now. So join me over here at mongodb.com. So you're just going to go right to there, right to that URL. And you're going to go ahead and say try for free. Now, it's free forever, right? It's not this, like Amazon where you have to give them a credit card number and you get 100 minutes or something, then they start billing you. No, this is actually free forever. It's pretty cool. Obviously, it's giving you limitations in terms of your data bandwidth. If you were to start, running like 50 gig a day through it or something, you'd be getting a call from their sales department asking for, some credit card information and so on. But they're very friendly towards students. They have something called Mongo University where you can take a bunch of courses in this for free, and it's great stuff, right? You can get certified for free. Looks great in your resume. And I'm telling you that all the cool new stuff, especially the AI-related stuff, is centric around JSON, right? There's MongoDB, there's Apache Cassandra, there's several other database implementations, but I'm telling you that the new cool stuff is all JSON, right? SQL, it's going to be around for decades. If you know SQL, it'll get you from now till retirement, but you're going to be supporting older products rather than building newer products. Anyway, let's get to work here. So now I've gone to mongodb.com. Now I'll say try for free. All right, so let's do this now. So there is that. And here's the password I'm going to use. Agree to terms and service. I'm all there now. I'm in. And that is the first thing I want you to do. Just get to the point where you can have an account. I'm going to pause the video now and come back after you've got yourself set up. If you have any... What is this? Upstream request terminated. If you have any problems, ping me on Slack. Once again, I think it would be pretty cool if for our first class on Thursday, everybody's already done this. Save a little bit of time. So, oh yeah, I don't know what that upstream timeout thing was, but I just refreshed. Now I'm all good. All right, now let's carry it on. Now these instructions are available in your database schema coded document, which I've sent out with this instruction as well, so you can go and reference it here. So create an account on MongoDB Atlas, done. Build a new cluster. After logging in, create a new cluster by clicking on the Build a Cluster button. So let's do that. So here, create a cluster. So how did I get into that? Let's take it right from the beginning. So I'll log out. All right, so let's go over this as many times as we need to see how we get to that connection string button. So, all right, once again, log out and log in. MongoDB.com and sign in. And there we go. Now spend a couple of seconds to figure out what's going on here. So you're probably going to want to create some additional accounts, maybe for your assignment or your project or whatever. So clicking on that leaf up there, I don't really know what a leaf has to do with Mongo, but anyway, that's what it is. So once you get there, you sort of get to your dashboard. And we created one cluster, right? So the project got created in the last activity we just did. When you're a new user, or it invites you to create a cluster, it's in a project. And if you want you can add team members who are also on MongoDB to this one project. So for right now, let's click on Project 0. And there's how you get to connection string. You see, that's what you need. Once again, taking it right from the beginning. Click on the leaf. Click on your projects. And there's Project 0. Click on that. If you have several projects, then just find the right one. And that gets you to your connection string. So let's copy the connection string. Now that's how we're going to go about setting up our Node.js project using Mongoose library, but we'll get to that next. So for right now, here is my connection string. So let's copy and let's save that someplace where we're going to remember it. Now MongoDB user, that is my username for this project, right? I created that. I called it whatever I wanted. Now your password, you go and put it in there. Whatever is your password you set when you made that cluster. And again, if anybody has any questions, just ping me on Slack. I can talk you through it again. But it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't know, nobody ever really seems to have problems with this if they do it before the class. If we do it in class, we're going to have problems because the system will sort of, it'll think it's being hacked because so many people are trying to log in at the same time. But just study the panels and think your way through it and let me know if you need help. That's about it. We now have a database up and set and ready to go for us to start writing some Node.js application code. So let's do that next. All right, guys, thanks for coming back. And here's what we're going to do right now. So what we've done, what we've accomplished is understanding what JSON and MONGO DB are, and setting up an account on MongoDB. And that's about what we've done. So, oh yeah, also we have made a cluster in a database. Which means we now have a connection string. And that connection string is going to be very important. That will be the input. Is used in MonGOOSE Code to programmatically manipulate the MONGO database or to use it as the back end in our model view controller. Right, so the program we're building up to is this. I closed it, hang on. Yeah, so this is going to be a very simple program. It's going to do nothing except verify that we can connect to our database. And then we can go and work around that connection object and we can keep going. So, of course, for this to work, we're going to have to do npm install mongoose, which I've already done previously. Did I? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Am I in the right directory? Let's see. File. Open folder. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. All right, let's try that now. Select folder. And it's going to do a bunch of window opening. Right, so now I've opened my Visual Studio Code. Here is a basic template of some starter code. It's connecting to us to our database. No, actually, sorry. It's connecting to us to our cluster, because a cluster can have several databases. We could go and use this connection string now to make a database, and we'll do it next. But because here, as you see, this connection string is pointing you to a cluster. If you wanted to connect to a database, you'd have to put the database name there, which we haven't done yet. So that would be more accurately said, cluster connected successfully. And then next step after that, of course, would be to go and make databases and collections and documents. But just to show you the importance of the connection string, there it is. Right, so Mike Waring, I usually go, my passwords are these sort of heroes from the old classic detective stories. Mike Waring was the Falcon from the 1950s. That was a pretty good radio drama series. Anyway, let's try running this. So save and run. And now it's connected to the cluster. So now let's go and take a look at MONGO DB Compass, which I did ask you to install. So let's get it up and started. And the purpose of MONGO DB Compass is to just give you a little diagnostics tool. You can quickly reach into your cluster, you can make databases, you can make collections, and you can sort of practice, make sure your JSON code is correct before you wrap it up in your MONGOOSE code. So here, I've gone to my, in fact, did I show you? Because I've been, redoing this video several times to make it more clear. So I'm not sure if I did show you this before, so we'll do it again. So now I need to make a connection. How? I need to go to my connection string. So let's go and get my connection string. I usually use Evernote to keep track of stuff. It's a pretty good digital diary tool. If you guys want, I can show you how to use it. But here is my... Oh, Matt Helm was my password before I went and redid something. Actually, this will work. I just have to replace it with Mike Waring. Or I could get it directly out of... Matt Helm was another private eye, like detective, secret agent, one of those characters. I could just get it out of here. And put it in the universal resource indicator. Right, so MongoDB is the protocol, user, password, and cluster. So let's go and say save and connect. So it's connected successfully, great. Now here are some collections I put there before, so I'm going to go and get rid of these. Actually, that's a database, right? That's a database. So you're going to make databases, which is the highest level of containment. And then you're going to make collections, which are an ag list of tables within your database, and documents within your collections. Oh, user is not allowed to do it, really? Well, I'm not going to spend time on that right now. I'm not sure why it's saying I'm not allowed to do it, but anyway. Admin and local are databases that MongoDB uses for its own internal management purposes, just like Microsoft SQL Server has a database called sysinfo. Don't touch them, right? If you change anything there, you need to reinstall. Actually, I'm not really sure what would happen. Well, you destroy your cluster, basically. Your cluster wouldn't work. You'd have to go back and make a new cluster. So here, let's make a collection. And now within that collection, I can make a document. So I can import if I had a CSV file with a bunch of data, or I could insert one individual document. Now, in your CODA document that I call database schema, I gave you a sample JSON you can play with here. So as you see, it starts and ends with curly braces, and then we have key value pairs. So here the key is products, and here the value is an array of several records. And we'll talk more about the construction of JSON documents tomorrow. But let's try adding this into our database that we just made. Right, and there we've now generated several records. And I'll talk about how object ID. So you have a key called underscore ID. And if you don't put it there, the database server will put it there for you because it needs it. And object ID is something that each document is assigned, and we're going to use that for things like embeddings and so on later if you want to correlate documents between collections. So anyway, that is a simple example of making some documents. I don't know however many documents we made here, 5 or something, using JSON and seeing the power of MongoDB. Now here we've inserted the next level of complexity. So if I run this program, it's now going to create one record. Now a couple of things to pay attention to here. Well, first of all, we're importing the Mongoose library, which you've previously seen importing the Express.js library, so that shouldn't be a big surprise. Here's our connection string. We've pretty much talked that to death, except here is one new thing you haven't seen yet. The way it works with MongoDB is you create a database like so. You create a database when you connect to it. So we've said that with JSON, we can programmatically change our data containers as we go along. And here, we're actually creating the database just by putting the name at the end of the connection string. And that's what creates the database. Except the database doesn't actually get created till you put your first document in it. And a document needs to be contained in a collection. So here, that's something we're going to study on Thursday. A product schema, in a sense, is like a class from which you make a model, and a model is a document. I know it's a lot of information. This is just a little bit of pre-exposure. But here, we're making a document called a product. So we're taking Mongoose, which is our class, .accessor notation, calling the model method, and we're giving it a name, and we're referring to the schema. And the schema is like a cookie cutter. It's like a sort of a blueprint saying that we want fields for name, which is string, price, which is number, and category, which is string. So here's where we're making the connection to our cluster, to our database in this case, because the database, the connection string now contains the database name. And we're reporting it's successfully connected. And we're making a new product with some fields. And we're saving it to the database. And we're reporting that save was successful. All right, now let's lean into the skills we made before, which is MONGO DB Compass. So go back and open that again. And you should have saved your connection to your database from before. So just go and open that. And now you see we have our grocery store, which is the new thing we just created. It's our new database we created right there. We have that there. And we have a collection called products. And we have a couple of documents in that collection. Actually, no, we have we have 2 records of bananas. Anyway, that's the way they've done that there. So let's make an experiment now. Let's delete the grocery store. Oh, the reason we have it twice is because I ran the program twice. Unlike in SQL, where you have to have unique records, JSON has no problem having the same record duplicated, so I ran the program twice. So yeah, that's why I had 2 of that record there. Yeah, for some reason I'm not allowed. I don't know. This is a new thing to me. I haven't seen it. I'm not sure why I'm having this problem, but anyway, suffice it to say, I have 2 records. If I go, I was just going to show you if I delete it and then this run this again, we'll get it back. But we can do that here. Something's odd with my computer. Things are closing unexpectedly. I don't remember closing Visual Studio Code. There's another instance of it running, yeah, but I don't see it. It's very confusing. And I also have multiple copies of MonGO DB. Yeah, because I know I didn't close it. There's something very odd going on. I hope I don't need to reinstall my operating system, because that's a real hassle. Shoot. Well, maybe if I reboot it'll help. Anyway, for right now, it's not really a good thing to do, but I'll just kill it because I don't know how to get it up and started again. Although I could just go to the directory and run it from the command line. Well, maybe we try doing it that way. I think I called it lab DB. Yes, lab MongoDB. DB. All right, let's just try running it from here. So I wanted to run file 2, so I should be able to do this. Because there's nothing special about Visual Studio Code. It's just a set of editors and perspectives. Great, it ran. Now we should see another occurrence of MongoDB in there. And my same thing, my Compass. Well, actually, I apparently have 3 instances of Compass running. I just can't see any of them. That's going to be a real problem in class if I can't fix that. So maybe I'll try. Maybe fix it in the morning. Anyway, it's not going to stop us from finishing our little demo right now. All right, so I'm connected to my cluster. I'm seeing all the databases in my cluster, which grocery store is one I made manually before. Fail to drop database because the user is not allowed to do that. All right. You see, now I have 3 records. That's the point. And I think my program is also reporting out. It's doing a read operation. All right, we're going to draw this to a close. If you get a chance to watch this video and do this stuff, you'll be ahead. If you don't, we're going to cover all of this in class. You can watch the video later on to recap it. But yeah, so I've showed you we're creating a document like so. We're saving to the database like so. And that's what we're doing. So anyway, I'm going to put this stuff in GitHub. If you want to play with it, I'll include the GitHub links And that's pretty much it. We'll see you in class tomorrow. Bye.